Well, hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on this classic wooden motor cruiser here in Victoria, British Columbia, along with the loving memory of my pup Geordie, all the while fixing it up for some pretty ambitious cruising. If that's the sort of thing that you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. I'd love to have you. Well, and this week we totally changed gears and get started working on Poem. And what a great week it was. In many ways, I wasn't all that productive, but it was really nice to connect with the boat and start to figure out what I might be doing with it. Anyway, more on that in the episode, and what I really realized how incredibly grateful I am to have it, and grateful to Lloyd for having given it to me. Speaking of Lloyd, I asked him to send us a little clip so that all of you could have an update on what he's up to, and here's a little preview of it.
Hello, fans of Travels with Geordie. Peter asked me to give you a quick update on what's been going on since after our trip to Desolation Sound last August. I got in the van, left Lund, and headed east toward Nova Scotia. I took the lowest route along Canada's border with the US and stayed on the north side, saw Waterton Lakes National Park, Grasslands National Park, topped over Lake Superior, had a magical time crossing the country.
And well, there you go. Stick around later on in the episode for the full clip. All right, let's jump back in time. Wow. It is so strange to come in here and see it empty. Well, it won't be empty long. Let's go get Poem. Well, it's been a privilege to be able to keep Poem on this mooring ball here. A very fine gentleman allowed me to do this, so I hope I can run into him someday and get him a bottle of something. Okay, let's go. First thing, check the voltage. Pretty good, but she's down a bit. It's been 2 days since I've been here. Let's get that blower going. All right, she's nicely warmed up. The test I use, because it's a gas engine, is if I can blip it and not stall it. Because you don't like to stall it while blipping it. Okay, so we're going to pull the mooring ball. Let's see where it is. It's way over there, so we got to crawl up on it a little bit, which would be helm to port and a little bit of drive, which of course requires a blip. There we go. Now we'll bring us up on the ball. I'll take it out of gear. And now I can just grab this bowline and be done with it. Anyway, I'll have to put you down because of course I can't untie a bowline with one hand. And we're away. beauty. Let's get to work. It's amazing that I can have the dinghy in here as well. Although that's one of the first things I want to do. This first week is a lot of administrative stuff. I don't know how much work I'll actually get done on Pome. But one is to haul the dinghy and put it up inside the shed here and just set everything up that I can work here. It sort of dawned on me on my way up here this morning in the Land Rover that Pome isn't set up for living aboard. So I'm camping, but I think I'll manage. Anyway, let's get to work. Okay, so the idea here is to be able to lift the little Minto dinghy up out of the water and be able to set it on the side of the dock in here. But it's 9 feet 4 inches long, so I have to be able to pick it up at least, I don't know, 10 feet in the air, a U-bolt, and a pulley. And it's up. First, we deal with this. Okay. And here we go. Absolutely palatial. Snug as a bug in a rug. All right, I know I can sleep. Let's dive into that foredeck. I am so curious to see what it'll look like with a little sanding. All right, we're gonna start right here with a little heat and scraping. I'm not even sure I'm gonna need much heat. Let's just start with an area here. All right, there's a suitably large area exposed for some sanding. Okay, well, I was told this was mahogany, but I really wonder. I've sanded off a reasonable amount and it is definitely this gold, yellow, teak color to me. Yeah, you'd think I would be more of an expert in mahogany and teak, but of course it wouldn't be Sapele, which I would recognize very quickly. It would be Honduran if it was mahogany. I suppose it hardly matters which it is, because it's beautiful and it's what's on the boat. And it's also 3/4 of an inch thick. This is the only decking. The bottom of this is V-grooved and right onto the deck beams. These screws go into the deck beams. So it's here. The trick would be whether or not I let it go raw like a teak deck and just varnish the edges, or whether or not, if it's mahogany, I have to varnish it, which of course makes it very slippery, but quite pretty. Anyway, lots to think about. Nice to see a little bit of it clean. Okay, carrying on the success of that work on the foredeck, here's the forward end of the cabin sides, which this is about as bad as it is anywhere on the boat. And of course, this is a very vulnerable spot because of the way Monk designed these particular boats with this little swoop at the beginning of the cabin sides creates opened end grain that, you know, very vulnerable here. Well, I can say I am very pleased. There's some moisture in the wood here. I don't know if that'll come out. Perhaps we can get that out with some acid. There are some non-native bungs in here. In other words, not original, non-mahogany. But it's been splined up here and here, but the splines seem to be in really good shape. I think that is going to come up really nice. Couldn't resist. How does that look? A little better? So I did a little more sanding here on the deck as well, and it's pretty clear to me that this is not the same wood as this. So I think this may be teak as well, because it certainly looks an awful lot like this. But now I'm kind of wondering if maybe the covering boards and the deck is teak And in fact, the decking itself, the boards, are mahogany. Anyway, you're all gonna let me know. Onto the cabin sides. You can see that, well, up here where the existing mahogany is not in bad shape, it looks absolutely lovely. You can see the mahogany grain coming through and really quite a nice color. I'm quite certain that there is stain either in this varnish or the wood was stained. Even though I put tung oil on this, this is never going to get that color. So I think probably to help hide imperfections and to get back the color that the boat is sort of naturally in, which is more red, I'll have to use a stain much like perhaps mahogany, Chris-Craft mahogany red, which is quite a common stain for these boats. Anyway, lots to learn, lots to learn. There's going to be a lot of sanding coming up. All right, with the instant gratification of having cleaned up this little patch of the foredeck makes me want to play around here a little more. There's lots to do, obviously. I think I'll remove most of the hardware, all this anchor gear. Actually, this anchor is much too big for this. This is Geordie's old anchor. And I'd like to see if the new anchor, Windlass, fits. A beautiful bronze McMurray Windlass. That is absolutely appropriate for this boat. Whew. Wow, look at that. Now, the truth is, even this windlass is pretty big. It has nothing like the power and size of the Plath that was in here. It appears to be big because the motor is on deck rather than down below. So in some ways, it looks a little bulkier even than the Plath did here. But I think it'll work out really well. What I have to do now is strip this down to its beautiful natural bronze. What a shame it was ever painted. Isn't that just a beautiful thing? Well, I've got it all scraped, and I have to say, I think the deck is in absolutely amazing shape. I think I only counted one missing bung. Everything else seems tight. Frankly, the seams actually may be good, but I'm probably going to reef them and redo them just for consistency. Very, very pleased. And good morning. Well, I've had an absolutely delightful stay aboard poem last night. And I just love this little boat. I am so thrilled. I never would have imagined that the wood underneath would be in such great shape. Yes, it's probably mahogany. I've been back and forth a few times, I know. But again, I'm still looking for your input. And it would have been lovely if it was teak so I could let it go raw. My understanding is mahogany must not be left to go raw because it can't take the weather and will make a mess. So it'll have to be revarnished. I've walked on this deck when it was shiny varnish. It's definitely going to need some kind of non-skid. Of course, it'll look glorious. Now, more on that later, but I'm getting way ahead of myself. Just because it's half done, I'm going to finish off the morning, finishing to sand it, and then gosh knows. Okay then, so I've stripped some old varnish off the foredeck. But Peter, what are you doing with Poem? And where did it come from? And well, let's jump back in time a little bit. For those of you who haven't been watching for a while, Poem is a pre-war 1938 27-foot Edwin Monk motor cruiser. Lovely, lovely boat built in Seattle. And it was recently gifted to me by a very good friend. If you go back through the episodes, you'd see where that happens. What I'm going to do with Poem, I have frankly no idea at all. I really adore the boat. I think it has a lot of potential. When Lloyd, the gentleman who gave it to me, said, do whatever you need to do, sell it tomorrow if that's the best thing to do. And well, so at any point, I may have to sell Poem. But as if you've been following along, you'll know I'd like to think of some sort of creative way that it can be useful for the channel, for the show, for me, for you. And I really don't know what that is yet. I've speculated on certain kinds of buddy cruising, or maybe some kind of co-op ownership, or some kind of Airbnb, or I just don't know yet. And believe me, I've looked at lots of options. I can tell you straight up, one of the biggest problems is finding a place to put it and do anything commercial. For instance, put it somewhere to be an Airbnb, very, very difficult on this coast. Chartering, incredibly complex. Perhaps the most viable use is some kind of co-ownership with maybe 100 or so of you, but which means you could use it, sort of like a timeshare. I don't know. Anyway, it's just ideas that are popping to my brain. You know, obviously if I had the means, I would just keep it and loan it out to people like yourselves, and we could buddy cruise and this and that. But to justify the pretty immense expenses going into it this winter, I have to make sure that Poem can earn its way as of the spring of 2023. And that's kind of a hard deadline. This shed belongs to Lady Zephyrus, and it will be put back into her use June 1st, 2023. So that gives me a big chunk of time to get a lot done. But then it's got to leave, and it's got to go somewhere, and it's got to make money. So that's kind of a tall order. Now, you're thinking all kinds of stuff. Well, Peter, what the hell are you doing all this work on Poem when you're still nowhere close to be done on Geordie? Well, that's true, and there's going to be a few naysayers for this project. But the truth is, Geordie is my home. It's my forever home, to tell you the truth. And I'm very comfortable aboard it in its current condition, downtown Victoria, living very, very comfortably. Yes, there's lots I want to do, galley being one, and it will be done this winter. But in a way, Geordie's kind of at a position where it's working very well. It's going to need some more helm work and some other things, but no major stuff for the next little while I would like. So I'm ready for a bit of a project like Poem. And in theory, Poem will generate some at least interest and engagement for the show, if not perhaps some revenue. So it's an interesting exploration. I can add that, as I've said, I adore the boat. I think it is like the perfect example of a very small little weekend cruiser, which is what it is. It's tiny. So what am I going to do? Well, yeah, I sanded the deck. That's by far not the most highest priority right now, but it was looking so shabby and it was just kind of fun to do, and it didn't take very long. So obviously the whole boat needs all the brightwork redone, and there's a lot of it, and a lot of cosmetics and a lot of work throughout. If you've been watching along, you also probably know that I'm going to completely gut and redo the interior. I have something really slick laid out for that, and it'll be done quality, but simply and quickly, but with a respect for its pre-war heritage. In other words, limiting the look, at least, of plywood. Now, there's an elephant in the room. Some of you know. It currently has a Chevy 6-cylinder gas engine in it, which works just fine. And a Borg-Warner Velvet drive transmission, which slips a little bit going into forward, but effectively works just fine. There's a bunch of reasons why I would rather not have that engine. And if you've been watching for a while, you know I've speculated on electrifying Poem. It is about the smallest motor cruiser, wooden motor cruiser, I can imagine. Therefore, a very good candidate for electric, because I can tell you from my past research that electrifying cruisers battery capacity is the problem, so range is the problem, so smaller is better. Okay, am I going to do that? I don't know. I can give you a sneak little insight that I am working on a video. I won't quite call it a documentary, but it won't be a Travels with Geordie episode, about the feasibility of electrifying small cabin cruisers. Spoiler alert, it's not feasible, but it is possible. So maybe in the interests of generating interest and being on the bleeding edge, or being part of the culture of adopting electric boats, I would electrify Pome. But it would be at great compromise and expense. But anyway, that's jumping ahead. It would be awfully sweet with a little 25 or 30 horsepower Beta Marine diesel. It'd be lovely. But anyway, hard to say what's going to go on with that. So that's about all I can really share with you right now, because it's all I know. In the meantime, I'm going to start gutting the interior, lowering the sole in the wheelhouse so that I can stand up inside, which is absolutely paramount for me. And in that process, continue to design and lay out the interior, and in that process, design how it's going to be powered in the future. I hope you enjoy it. Cheers.
Had a magical time crossing the country. Spent September in Nova Scotia seeing dear friends where I lived for 17 years, and also installing the new ceiling and the walls and the tweed. So this is the English tweed on the ceiling and on the doors and on the walls. And I've still got to put the trim around the windows, but I got to install the windows and probably be in Joshua Tree, California. I'll probably put the windows in here behind the front seats and the windows in the back doors. Eventually, I'll replace the Baltic birch with bamboo door faces. That's why they're just cut as templates and not as finished faces. But that's down the road also. The only other big project is the floor, just to put a finished floor on top of the marine ply. All the systems are working great. Starlink's working great. It's a game changer. Peplink's working great. The galley here, is 7 feet of countertop space, is just glorious to work with. The hideaway sink I love. The desk over here on the other side is a great place for work and writing and reading and the like. One of the most comfortable changes is the new futon. I had this great indie mattress, like 10 inches tall. Comfortable as all get out. But you had to jump to get in bed and jump to get out of bed, and it's 65. That's just not a good thing to be doing. Now I can fold up the futon. I've got my meditation space here now. I can do yoga up here now. It's just great. Remember, 60 square feet, every foot's got to be multi-use. From here, I'll head up the West Coast back to Canada. My goal every year is to be in Vancouver, Victoria in April, and do Vancouver Island during the month of April. May BC, June, July, and August, cross Canada. September in Nova Scotia, October in New England, November in the winter down here in Southwest, and then head back up in the new year up the West Coast. I'll just loop that way with a different route each year. That gives me lots of opportunities. I have 3 questions that have made the trip really amazing. I ask everybody I meet, what's the best Mexican place in town? Number 2, where's the place in your local community that you know about as a secret, and as a tourist I would never know? And then where should I go next that I shouldn't miss? Those questions have brought me some of the most amazing places. The best chili cheese, green chili cheeseburger, wildlife reserves and nature parks and museums that I would never have seen otherwise. So I encourage, if you travel a lot, those are some questions you may want to ask. But the thing is, I'm enjoying the most is just meeting new people, having a nice conversation, finding a stream with some trout in it, doing a little fly fishing, sitting somewhere with a good book and reading, and then after experiencing a day, writing a poem about it, and just enjoying the trip. I love what Peter's doing with Poem. I wish all of you the best. I hope you have a chance one day to see Poem for real. and participate with the projects he's got planned for her. I look forward to seeing Peter again in April and maybe get some cruising in every so often with him. In the meantime, if you'd like to keep up with what's going on here with me in the van, check out Roaming for Life. That's ROAM, Roaming for Life on Instagram and Facebook, and you'll see what we're doing. In the meantime, best everybody. Be well, stay safe. Thank you so much.
Well, hello there and welcome to the Travels with Geordie Beer of the Week. Coming to you this week from beautiful Victoria Harbour aboard MV Geordie. Well, this week I must say the Beer of the Week really jumped out at me. This is a bottle from Hoyne Brewery simply called Gratitude. And all the writing on this bottle is all the things one might be grateful for. In the top left corner it starts with people, and in the bottom right corner it ends with people, and in between there are hundreds of things we might be grateful for in this life. And I literally couldn't resist. I've never seen this bottle before, and it just seemed so opportune. It is simply called a strong beer. That's all it actually says about the beer in the bottle. So I don't know anything about it. Well, it caught me at a moment where I was already feeling very grateful. Part of that gratitude, I think I mentioned earlier, was how grateful I was to have Poem, and grateful to Lloyd for having given it to me. But that sort of set off a bunch of stuff that I'll talk to you about in a minute. Gratitude from Hoyne Brewery. It's a strong beer to encourage gratitude. It is amazing how when you start to think about gratitude, it sort of can well up in you and get caught up. Those of you in America have just been through your Thanksgiving, which of course, gave you pause to think about gratitude. Our Canadian Thanksgiving is quite a few weeks earlier. But my life in general these days does remind me regularly to be grateful. By the time you watch this, I'll have turned 60. And I'm very grateful for my health, for having had a fabulous life, for having two wonderful daughters that are a part of that. I'm very grateful to Lady Zephyrs for her company and companionship. I'm grateful for so much in this world, and I know I've used this word so many times, but the word of the week this week will also be grateful, because it just feels right. And most importantly, I'm grateful to be able to share all of that with you. Cheers. Gratitude. Now, wouldn't this be cool to be a little like a rotunda seating down here, just like sunken living room thing going on? I don't know.